Yes, hello BFST class, you're welcome to another session, and this time we are going to look at leadership and delegation. So starting with the leadership, leadership is the capacity of a manager or an agribusiness manager to achieve a challenging goal by taking decisive actions needed, outperforming the competition and also inspiring others to perform at the highest level they can. So a leader is always has a vision which he communicates to others, and therefore a leader should be able to establish a direction and also influence others to follow the same direction. So we have formal and informal leadership. Formal leadership is where you have an official title and position of authority assigned to someone to be a leader. However, there are scenarios where someone is not appointed officially as a leader, but they have those qualities, and in that way, they somehow influence others. So that is what we call informal leadership. So what are the attributes of a good leader? In many cases, someone might have the official title, but when they don't have the qualities, but then someone might not be officially hired as a leader or recognized as a leader, but when they have the attributes of a good leader. So what are the characteristics that a good leader should have? They should have a sense of mission. Eh? They should be able to influence others to work together. They should be decisive. And then you should be able to solve problems in a creative manner. They should have good organizational skills. They should be good communicators. And then they should be good negotiators, because at the end of the day, like in our previous class, is a leader represents workers and the organization to other stakeholders. So, and on top of that, a leader should have good delegation skills. So, where you feel someone needs to come in, you should be able to delegate. So, leadership is important to an organization in the following ways: it initiates action, because some people will want that push. So, through leadership, people are able to start on what they are supposed to do. And then it is a way of motivating employees. It is a way of guiding, creating confidence, and then morale building among the workers. It builds a good environment, and it allows coordination through reconciling personal interests with organization goals. So, as a good leader, you should always ask yourself the following questions. What exactly am I supposed to do as a manager? In other words, what are your roles and responsibilities? And then, do you have the resources? And can they be on time? So, how free are you to take decisions? So after knowing your roles and responsibilities, now this is about knowing your boundary. For example, do you have the authority to move staff around? And then how can you balance your managerial and clinical issues? How can you reduce on the time spent on many routine reports? And then what and where are the tools and techniques to help you do your job very well? So once you have answers to all of that, trust me, you will be an effective manager. So like we said, a leader should be able to delegate, and delegation is key. So it is defined as a shifting authority and responsibility for particular functions from one person to another, and delegation is always from a leader or manager to a subordinate or to someone at a lower level. So it is a process of distributing, but then you should also entrust work with the person you're delegating the work to. However, delegation is not dumping personal responsibility, but it's all about spreading out best advances for the organization's long-term cause. So delegation does not involve telling people what to do, but rather informing people of their expectations. So once you trust someone, you should not dictate on how someone should do the work, but rather let that person know what is expected at the end of the day, what is expected out of them. And still, delegation does not look the same in every situation because work environments are dynamic. So it should not be a static experience. So delegation does not mean you can't do it all by yourself, but it means you're strong enough to identify projects that would be good for also others. Because at the end of the day, we shall look at delegation, a good leader as a coach. So once you identify that a certain responsibility can help your employee grow, why not entrust them with it? So it doesn't mean you can't perform that particular activity, but it's because you want to entrust others with it to be able to also grow or to feel part of the team. So what is your role as a manager in delegation? Your role, the first role is directing. So leaders need a lot of directing, and overseeing projects closely on by giving regular instructions and guidance to the people they are delegating the work to. And then a manager should be a coach. So a coach means someone who is going to support the subordinate or the employee by taking them through what is expected out of them. So a manager should be able to coach or guide the subordinate on their roles and responsibilities. Then a manager's role is also that of supporting. So before the subordinate or the employee becomes more comfortable to take on the responsibility, the manager should be there to help or to support anytime they are consulted. You don't delegate and run away. So you should be available for as a referee. Then your role still is to delegate. So here, this is now the final stage. After someone has coped up with the case, then you entrust them with the entire process. So therefore, delegation is a leader's decision to lead by providing a vision and direction, trust others by empowering them to deliver, then develop beyond a leader's personal capacity. So when you delegate, you don't also dictate on what the delegated person should do. So you give them room to come up with their own opinions, which increases on the creativity in an organization. And then it is also a decision to build capacity in others through training and new experiences. And then the manager also replaces him or herself with others who can do the same job, freeing themselves to contribute elsewhere. Remember, your plate is always full as a manager, so once you delegate, you get time to do or to perform other duties. So below are some of the reasons why managers decide to delegate. Two is better than one. So when you don't delegate, you suffer alone. But then once you trust and bring on other people, you share the burden. Then develop your skills as a manager. Like I mentioned, that your plate is always full. So when you delegate some of the work, you get a time to work on your skills and capabilities that will help you achieve other goals in the shortest time. And then it increases communication. You just imagine if you entrust your subordinate or employee with an activity and they excellently perform it, so there will be that bonding, so it increases communication between the manager and the employees. Then collective success. In case there is success, it is not a one-man achievement, but it is a collective effort. And then delegate to build an efficient team. As you delegate and give your employees room to work on a certain project or activity, in the same way, you're helping them improve on their skills, hence being more efficient, and then preserving good skilled people in your team. So delegation empowers employees to make decisions and feel they are important. So when you feel recognized, you don't look, you're not always on a lookout for better opportunities because you feel at home. Then delegation saves time. Like I mentioned, instead of uh, dying alone or performing a task as a single person, why not share it to save time? So delegation is a process and it starts with allocation of duties. So here you come up with the different activities that you would want to be delegated to employees. Then after you've allocated the duties, you allocate authority, because you're not going to give someone a task when they don't have the authority to, let's say, take a decision. So that second step after you've allocated duties is also giving in the authority. Then assignment of responsibilities. So here the employee or subordinate is made aware of what is expected out of them at the end of that day. Then the creation of accountability. So as they are performing their roles and responsibilities, they should be aware that at the end of the day they are going to be answerable to what they have done. So they are supposed to be held accountable. There are various principles that guide delegation, and the first one is the principle of result expected. Like I mentioned, an employee or a subordinate should be aware of what is expected out of them at the end of the day. So prior to delegation, a manager needs to know the purpose of such delegation and the results which they expect from it. And this should be communicated to the employee or subordinate. Then the principle of parity of authority and responsibility. Authority and responsibility go hand in hand. You can't give someone a responsibility without the authority. So once you give in a responsibility, you should also give the subordinate the powers or the authority to take decisions. Then the principle of absoluteness of responsibility. So here when you delegate, you don't run away. So in other words, you don't abandon, as a manager, you don't abandon your roles and your responsibilities. Since it is a collective effort, so both the manager and the person who was delegated to are both answerable. Then we have the principle of unity of command. So in any organization, to avoid confusion, there should always be one superior. So an employee should only have one supervisor, and that supervisor should be known. Then the other principle is the scalar principle. This one clearly puts formal lines of hierarchy of authority within an organization. So the subordinates should know the flow of authority and responsibility. In other words, they should be aware of who to report to, and if that person has not been of use, who is the next person in line. Then principle of exception. So this principle states that employees should be given complete freedom to fulfill their responsibilities, and therefore managers should refrain from interfering or dictating the day-to-day work of their subordinates, even when they realize minor mistakes. They only come in when major mistakes are foreseen. So, with all the important, the different importances of delegation, sometimes some managers decide not to delegate. And why? The first reason is ego. People think they do it better themselves. Then time, they don't want to labor to coach, to explain, to guide subordinates, so they would rather do it and save that time. Then accountability, like I said, that it is a shared responsibility. Even when you delegate, at the end of the day, you're also answerable. So people fear when other people make mistakes on their behalf. So they don't want to be accountable for those mistakes, so they would rather perform the activity themselves. Then skills gaps. Some people don't trust that their subordinates have the skills to outperform a given task. Then authority threat. If someone learns how to do it, they might take on my job, or it might reduce on my authority, because at first you thought you knew it alone, but now when you realize that others can, then your authority might reduce. So with that, delegation is also important to an employee. So it is a chance to prove your worth when you're interested with a task. Prove your worth by uh, doing your best to make sure you accomplish. Then it is an opportunity to feel involved in the business or organization. And then it is also a unique opportunity for you to grow your career, because as you're working on your CV, you put in all achievements or projects that you've been able to work on and were a success. So thank you so much. That's all with leadership and delegation.